So from a philosophical perspective, we believe that technology is a choice. And ultimately, the consumer will determine, the type of technology, once you put it in their hands, the type of technology that suits them best. So we are sort of anti like big tech saying, hey, this is the technology from the top down. We're going to shove it down your throat, and you have to use it. 6AI is more bottom up, and we see technology as an enhancing tool to help you achieve your goals and objectives. So that's sort of our philosophy in relation to AI technology.
That's great. And Ali, obviously that's something that you've spoken about many times before. And we spoke about the processes and what we go through and the iterations that you have to go through in the back end in order to achieve that. Do you want to speak a little more about that?
Absolutely. I think what differentiates what we do at 6AI versus what's being hyped up, it has actually its roots in philosophy. Absolutely right, Perry, because it's about, people forget that AI is fundamentally based on a philosophy of learning. In this case, we're talking about machine learning, but it's no different than human learning. And if you take learning at its foundation, it starts with memorization. We've all gone through that. You cannot learn a language without first learning the alphabets, right? And then you start to learn, the next level of learning is actually the structural learning, right? You learn the syntax, how you take the letters, which is basically a visual representation of a sound, and how you structurally put them together to create something called words. And that's the first beginning of meaning, because a letter by itself doesn't mean anything. It's just a symbol that represents a sound. But once you put these letters together, you have a complex sound that represents a human idea, right? Like a book or a bread or whatever concept you want to talk about. And that's just a syntactic structure. But now that you've learned that, and that syntactic structure has given you the emergence of the elemental set of meanings, the meaning of things, of objects, how do you create the next level of structure, which is the semantic structure that starts to combine these tokens of meanings into much more complex meaning? It's not only complex in terms of the amount of information it carries, but it's also complex in terms of the sophistication of artistic expression. So that's why you can take the same words that I'm using and they fall flat on everybody's ears. And it's the same words that somebody like Shakespeare used years ago, but they're a masterpiece, right? The difference there is not the syntax. The difference there, it's the semantic structure, right? And those literal artists are actually people who are good at creating plays in semantic patterns and so on and so forth. It's the same thing that's happening in machine learning. And human beings, being as lazy as we are, we settle for the easy thing, right? Which is we take the brute force approach, we expose our models, our simple models, to tremendous amounts of data, and we hope that the model has seen enough and memorized enough that pretty much it has seen most syntactic patterns of how sentences are put together. But that type of learning is devoid of meaning because it has not learned the more complex, the more sophisticated, the richer structure of meaning. And the problem with meaning is it doesn't have a deterministic, predefined structure like syntax has. There's only one way you can put letters together.
You learn as you go, basically.
Exactly. And there is things that are, part of meaning is that it's an emergent property, right? I can play with words that normally no one would even think of using, like when we're using allegories and plays on words, right? Where you say, for example, that can I make this bird dance on the tip of a needle? The imagery is so complex that you would never think of putting these four words in the same sentence, but it conveys a much more complex meaning, right? It's almost, it
Yeah.
conveys this idea of impossibility of the task, right? That something as big as a bird could stand on something as tiny
Yeah.
as a tip of a needle. And that's the hardest part of learning for human beings. That's why not everybody can become Shakespeare, right? But it's also for machines. Now,
Right.
the machine, having been exposed to so many examples of what Shakespeare has written, can take any text you give it and rewrite it to sound like. So structurally, it'll sound like Shakespeare, right? But to have the elegance of creating something new and original of the same caliber as Shakespeare, I don't think we have found the formula for that yet, right?
Which is, I guess it's a good thing.
It is a good thing, but it
We
takes
don't
the
want to be.
humility of understanding what's at stake so that we know what the limitations are today.
Yeah.
And it's understanding the limitations that opens the new horizon of exploration to
Yeah.
understand where we need to push the envelope beyond where we are today. And
But I
that's
think, yeah, I think that's where 6AI is going with this whole idea of, you know, we see hallucinations, we see, and we're looking at our tool as a tool to support people in making strategic decisions, not a tool that's going to make decisions. I mean, it's really about, you know, empowering people, not replacing people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, 100%. And picking up on what Ali saying, this is why for 6AI, we are not we believe it's impossible. You know, I hate to use the word impossible, but we believe it is impossible to erase remove human beings from the equation. You know,
Yeah.
let's go back to some philosophy and Aristotle. He was the one who first, you know, essentially said intelligence is a function of you know the five senses, you know, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, all these things, right? And then it was Kant who talked about, you know, how we reason a priori, so we know certain things by just seeing things, and we calculate hundreds of thousands of millions of things in our head, you know, automatically. So human beings learn a priori also empirically, right, through experiences,
Yeah.
right? And all of those experiences captures the universe. Okay. So with AI now as a machine, the machine has significant limitations, but that's okay. What Ali's also said was important is when machines have what we humans have, enormous memory. So let's take the technology of that enormous memory and let's take the empirical experience-based knowledge of the human being, because the machine doesn't know meaning. The machine doesn't know doesn't know what
Yeah.
the outputs that it puts out. It doesn't know why. Okay. So what we're saying is that you need you know the human being to guide and to lead this, but you're using machine as an amplifying, augmenting force to harness that memory to help you work faster, okay, and give you more information, right? So just think about it, right? If you're doing a PhD or something, it takes tons of time and you got to research and you got to research. Just think of a tool that can help you, you know, gain that information really, really quickly and help you. But still, the human mind, human creativity, human ingenuity, human innovation is still what leads,
Yeah.
because the human has meaning and we understand. So again, we are not about trying to replace people. We're just trying to use AI for what we believe it was meant to do. Like
Yeah.
any other tool in the last 1,000 years, it's a piece of technology that supports the task that we're doing and helps to make humans better and do things more efficiently and create value.